Hey there, friends. Welcome back to our cozy English learning corner. If you're new here, I'm so happy you're joining us. This is part of our special story series made just for English learners like you. Whether you're learning English for school, work, travel, or just for fun, this story will help you grow your skills step by step. So grab a warm drink, get comfortable, and let's begin this beautiful story together. Today, we start Chapter 1 of a magical journey. Ready? Let's go. It was early morning in the small village of Rosehill. The sun was soft and golden, lighting up the rooftops like a dream. The smell of bread came from the bakery. Birds were already singing in the trees. Everything felt peaceful. In a small stone house at the edge of the village lived a girl named Ella. She was 17, with kind eyes the color of honey and long brown hair tied back with a blue ribbon. Ella loved books, flowers, and quiet mornings. But most of all, she loved stories. Her life, however, was not like the happy stories she read. Ella lived with her stepmother and two stepsisters, who treated her more like a servant than family. Every morning, Ella cleaned the floors, washed the dishes, and made breakfast for everyone. She had no time for fun, and little time for rest. "Ella, where's my dress?" called her stepsister Lila from upstairs. "I asked for tea, not coffee," shouted the other Mina from the kitchen. "I'm sorry," Ella said gently, running between rooms. Her stepmother, Madame Prindle, always wore dark dresses and a cold expression. She rarely spoke kindly. "Don't forget your chores, girl," she said sharply, "and stay out of sight if visitors come." Ella sighed as she picked up a broom. Her arms were already tired. Still, she smiled to herself. When she was alone, she would whisper stories to the birds outside or sing softly while cleaning. In those small moments, her heart felt lighter. That afternoon, as she scrubbed the front steps, a letter carrier passed by and dropped a colorful envelope into the mailbox. Ella picked it up and brushed off the dust. It was addressed to all families of Rosehill. Curious, she opened it. An invitation from the royal palace. The king and queen invite you to the spring ball. All young people of the village are welcome. Come dressed in your best. Music, dancing, and celebration await. Ella's eyes grew wide. A real ball? At the palace? That night, at dinner, her stepsisters screamed with excitement. "I'm going to wear my red dress," Mina said. "I'll curl my hair like the princesses do," Lila added. Ella looked down at her simple dress. She didn't say a word. Her stepmother turned to her. "You may come only if your work is finished, and you have something proper to wear," she said with a smirk. Knowing Ella had nothing but worn shoes and old clothes, Ella nodded silently. But deep inside, a tiny hope began to grow. The next morning, the village was full of excitement. Everyone was talking about the royal ball. At the bakery, at the tailor's shop, even at the old fountain in the square, people were dreaming of music, lights, and dancing. But in the small house at the edge of Rosehill, Ella was hard at work. She washed her stepsister's dresses, swept the floors again, and helped her stepmother pick out jewelry. No one asked if she wanted to go to the ball. As she folded clothes in the attic, she found an old trunk. Inside was a faded blue dress. It had once belonged to her mother. Ella gently touched the fabric. It smelled like lavender and warm sunshine. Even after all those years, her eyes filled with tears. "I miss you, Mama," she whispered. "You always believed in dreams." She held the dress close and looked out the small attic window. The garden below was full of spring flowers, soft yellow, pink, and white petals dancing in the breeze. A bird landed on the windowsill, tilting its head. Ella smiled. "You're lucky, little bird. You can fly wherever you want." Later that day, while her stepsisters argued about shoes, Ella carefully washed the dress and laid it out to dry. It wasn't fancy, but it was beautiful in a simple way, like starlight on water or the first snow. As evening came, Ella stepped outside for a moment of quiet. The air was cool, and the sky above was full of stars. She closed her eyes and made a small, gentle wish. "I just want one night to feel like myself, to dance, to laugh, to be free." Suddenly, The wind stirred. The leaves rustled, and a soft light shimmered near the garden gate. Ella turned quickly. Her heart beat fast. Standing there was a woman kind-eyed, glowing faintly, with silver hair tied in a loose braid. She wore a dress that shimmered like the moon. "Don't be afraid," the woman said in a warm, calm voice. "You made a wish." Ella stared in amazement. "Are you real?" The woman smiled. "I am your fairy godmother, and tonight, your wish comes true." Ella gasped. "But how? I don't have anything. No carriage, no shoes, no jewels." "Let me handle that," said the fairy godmother kindly. She touched a pumpkin with her silver wand. In a flash, it turned into a beautiful golden carriage. Then, with a wave of her hand, 4 mice became white horses with bright, proud eyes. Ella's old dress floated up, spun once in the air, and changed into a flowing gown of soft silver and blue. It sparkled gently, like a quiet night sky. On her feet appeared delicate glass slippers. I don't know what to say," whispered Ella, tears in her eyes. "Just be yourself, my dear," said the fairy godmother. "But remember, this magic ends at midnight." Ella nodded, heart full of wonder. She stepped into the carriage, still not sure if she was dreaming. As the carriage rolled down the quiet village road toward the palace, Ella looked back once at the house, then forward, toward the light. The royal palace shone like a dream. Its tall windows glowed with golden light. Laughter, music, and the sound of dancing feet floated into the night air. Roses climbed the palace walls, their petals catching the moonlight. Inside, people from every part of the kingdom twirled across the ballroom floor. Young ladies wore dresses in every color: emerald green, ruby red, soft lilac, golden yellow. Gentlemen in crisp suits smiled and bowed. The musicians played a joyful melody that made hearts race and toes tap. But no one noticed the prince. Prince Leo stood near the tall windows, holding a glass of punch and looking bored. He was 21, with kind brown eyes and dark, slightly messy hair. He wore a fine suit, but he tugged at the collar like it didn't quite fit. His parents, the king and queen, had planned the ball to help him meet someone special. But every girl who danced with him only talked about his title, his castle, or how rich he was. No one asked what he liked. He sighed. "Maybe I'll sneak out and talk to the horses," he muttered. Just then, the doors opened again. Everyone turned. There, standing in the light, was a girl no one had seen before. She wore a soft blue gown that shimmered like starlight. Her hair glowed in the warm light, and her eyes sparkled with wonder. She stepped forward slowly, unsure but brave. Prince Leo froze. Ella saw the beautiful ballroom, the glowing chandeliers, and all the eyes looking at her. Her hands trembled a little. But then she saw the prince, and he didn't look proud or cold. He looked kind and nervous. She smiled. He smiled back. "Would you like to dance?" he asked, gently offering his hand. "Yes," Ella said quietly. And just like that, the world faded away. The music slowed. They moved together as if they had known each other forever. The prince asked her where she grew up, what she liked to do. She laughed softly and told him about books and singing, about gardens and skies. She didn't say who she was, but somehow, that didn't matter. The prince laughed too. "Finally," he said, "someone real." They danced and talked and danced again. The other girls watched with wide eyes. Even the queen leaned over to the king and whispered, "Who is she?" But time moved faster than it seemed. Outside, the church bell began to ring. Dong, dong, dong. Ella counted. 1, 2, 3. Her smile faded. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly. "I have to go." "Wait, why?" the prince asked, reaching for her hand. She shook her head. "I'm sorry. I can't explain." She turned and ran down the golden steps, through the garden, across the stone path. One glass slipper slipped off her foot, but she didn't stop. 10, 11. As the clock struck midnight, the gown vanished. The carriage turned back into a pumpkin. The horses became mice again. Ella stood at the edge of the road in her old dress, heart pounding, one slipper still in her hand, but she was smiling. The next morning, the village of Rose Hill buzzed with news from the palace. "Did you hear?" said the baker's wife. "The prince danced all night with a mysterious girl. No one knows who she is," whispered the tailor. "She left without a name. They say she ran away at midnight," added the flower seller. "But she dropped a glass slipper." In the quiet house at the edge of the village, Ella listened silently as her stepsisters talked loudly over breakfast. "I just know the prince liked me," said Mina, flipping her hair. "He smiled when he passed my table," said Lila, even though he hadn't. Ella kept her eyes down and cleared the dishes. Her heart was still full from the night before. She had danced in the arms of a prince. She had laughed. She had felt free. But now, it felt like a dream. A lovely, impossible dream. She carefully placed the remaining slipper under a loose floorboard in her attic room. It was all she had to remind her. It was real. Days passed. Then, one morning, a royal carriage arrived in Rose Hill. Villagers gathered to see a tall man in a blue uniform step out. He held a glass slipper on a velvet pillow. Prince Leo wasn't with him, but the message was clear. "The girl who fits this slipper shall become the future princess," the man announced. "We will try it on every young woman in the kingdom." The village gasped. The prince was looking for her. Madame Prindle almost dropped her teacup when she heard. "Mina, Lila, get ready at once," she cried. "You must try on the slipper." She turned to Ella. "You, stay out of sight. You didn't even go to the ball." Ella said nothing. She just nodded and returned to the attic. Her hands were shaking. Could this truly be happening? She opened the floorboard and held the second slipper in her hand. It still sparkled softly in the morning light. Part of her wanted to run downstairs and shout the truth. But another part, the careful, quiet part, was afraid. What if they laughed? What if they stopped her? In the parlor below, the man from the palace had arrived. First, Mina tried. Her foot was too wide. Then Lila, too long. Madame Prindle forced fake smiles. "They must be nervous," she said. "Try again." The man shook his head. "It must fit perfectly. There are no second chances." He was about to leave when Ella came slowly down the stairs. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly. "May I try?" Everyone froze. Her stepmother's voice turned sharp. "She's just a servant. She didn't go to the—" But the man raised a hand. "All young women." Those were the prince's words. Ella sat gently, heart pounding. The slipper slid onto her foot like it was made for her. Gasps filled the room. The air itself seemed to pause. Then Ella reached into her pocket and pulled out the second glass slipper. Silence. Then, the royal man smiled. "We've found her." The next day, Ella rode in the royal carriage back to the palace. She wore a fresh blue dress, simple but lovely, and her hair was gently brushed back. Her heart beat fast as the trees and fields passed outside the window. She was leaving behind the only life she had ever known. As the carriage neared the gates of the palace, Ella touched the glass slipper resting in her lap. It sparkled like a tiny star. But her thoughts were not about crowns or castles. They were about something much deeper. Who am I now? She wondered. At the palace steps, Prince Leo stood waiting. When he saw her, his face lit up, not like a prince seeing a princess, but like a person seeing someone they truly missed. "You came back," he said, his voice warm. Ella stepped out of the carriage. "I wasn't sure I could," she said, almost in a whisper. They stood quietly for a moment before he offered her his hand. "Come," he said. "There's something I want to show you." He led her through the palace gardens, past the roses and fountains, until they reached a quiet bench under a willow tree. "I don't care about the slipper," he said softly. "I care about you, the girl who talked about stars and sang about books, the one who laughed like she hadn't laughed in years." Ella looked at him. "And I'm just me, a girl who cleaned floors and whispered stories to birds." He smiled. "Then that's exactly who I was looking for." Tears welled in her eyes, not of sadness, but of relief, of being seen, truly seen. That evening, a quiet dinner was prepared in her honor. Not a grand ball, just soft music, candlelight, and kind conversation. The king and queen, curious at first, quickly saw Ella's gentle heart and honest spirit. "She's not what I expected," the queen whispered to her husband. "She's better," he replied. Over the next few days, Ella was given time to rest, to read in the palace library, and walk the quiet gardens. No one rushed her. No one made demands. She was treated not like a prize but like a person. Still, she had to make a choice. Late one afternoon, she found Leo again under the willow tree. "I don't know if I belong in a palace," she said honestly. "My life has always been small, quiet. This world feels big." He looked into her eyes. "Then let's make it smaller. We don't need to do what everyone expects. We can write our own story." Ella smiled slowly. "Do you really mean that?" "With all my heart," he said. And in that moment, something in Ella softened. Not because she had been saved, but because she had been heard, because her voice finally mattered. They stood together under the fading sky, not as prince and servant, but as two people ready to begin something new, something true. Spring turned slowly into summer. The palace no longer felt so big, and Ella no longer felt so small. She didn't move into a golden tower or sit on a throne all day. Instead, she helped plant a new garden beside the royal library, with her hands in the soil and laughter in the air. The palace staff adored her. The queen asked her advice. Even the old cat who lived in the kitchen followed her around like a shadow. But Ella never forgot who she was or where she came from. One morning, Prince Leo joined her by the garden. He wore no crown, just soft boots and a shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He sat beside her and watched as she gently tied up a climbing rose. "You're still the same girl," he said. Ella smiled. "Just not hiding in the attic anymore." Later that week, something special happened. The royal courtyard was decorated with lanterns and ribbons. There were no guards in lines, no grand trumpets, just neighbors from nearby villages, old friends, and new ones. The invitation had said, "Please join us for a day of celebration. Not for a princess or a prince, but for a promise, kindness, honesty, and love." Ella wore a light dress, the color of the sky before sunset. Leo stood beside her, his hand in hers. They didn't call it a wedding. They called it a beginning. There was dancing, there was laughter, and somewhere between the songs and stories, Ella looked up and saw birds circling high above the castle, just like the one that had visited her window long ago. She closed her eyes for a moment and made one last quiet wish, not for magic or gowns or even happiness, just for the chance to keep growing, to keep learning, and to help others believe they could too. And as if the wind heard her, a breeze passed through the garden, soft and sweet. It was only the beginning. You did it. That was the end of our story, and the start of your own English adventure. I hope this story made you smile, helped you learn, and filled your heart with warmth. If you enjoyed this story, tell a friend, share it with your study group, or read it again and again. Repetition is great for learning. Like this video if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe for more cozy English stories, and leave a comment. What was your favorite part of the story? Keep practicing your English every day, one beautiful word at a time. You're doing so well, and I'm so proud of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and stay cozy. Bye for now.